highlighter won't come out.
You got shit on your shirt? Had you shit yourself?
Where do you think?
Hey, you should see what it's like when you're out on the golf course and suddenly. Yeah. I was gonna say, oye, Robert. Gonna say, why do you think they put bushes on golf courses sometimes? Don't tell anybody.
I better get started. I'm keeping it quiet. Better get my name in that acceptance speech. And I never would have been able to do it without the best board.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. You gotta find it. Nature calls. Las cosas que pasan. Dale, Victor. Vamos a meterle con todo. We are dark today. Wow. See if they can adjust the. No, I'm talking about my outfit, not my. See, oye, Rob, go in tighter to see what coloration really looks like. I know, I'm just wearing abnormally dark clothing that matches the background. I don't. Yeah, there you go. He's shading it now. There you go. Now the colors are coming. Before I just looked like a big dark. Okay. And what's it look like tight? How's that? What's it look like when if it's tight? Want me to undo this a little bit so I look a little more. How's that? Look at Richard's. Richard's like, who the fuck do you think you are? He says, oh, great. And my guests are there, and they're. Hey, guys, hold on. I want to show you something. I think this is the way we got to do the show today. Ready? Oh, huh? What do you think? Good. No. Pasta. You're funny. Pasta's okay. I'll just take my shirt off. How's that? Yeah, I don't care. Oh.
Pasta. Oh.
Meanwhile,
I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, Wilmer says, no, I'm thinking about putting on an ascot if you guys are going there.
No. I
Looks
am
like he's
not
wearing the
Roland Martin.
priest thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Roland Martin.
I am not Roland Martin.
What an interesting character that guy is. He and I.
That's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah, he's something. Oh, I got stories for you. Oh my God, you just said that word.
Yeah,
man.
I was gonna say you probably have a lot of stuff about Roland.
Listen, man, I got stuff about O'Reilly. I worked with O'Reilly. I worked with Anderson. I worked with Larry. I worked with Roland. I worked with Wolf Blitzer. I can tell you everything you need to know about all those people. And some of it's good. Some of it's good. I mean, Blitzer, great guy. Good friend. I mean, he does what the State Department tells him to do, but, as a guy, he's cool. Anyway, you guys ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Let's have some fun. All right, let's do it. Wilmer. everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and this is the Week in Review.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
And I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on this week. First of all, this is big. An arrest warrant issued on the Nord Stream pipeline, and the former president's messaging kind of goes off the rails. Those are two of the stories that have been taking place this week. I'm Rick Sanchez. Let's do this. All right, another wild week to say the very least, and we're going to be taking you through most of this stuff. We're going to do it with two of the best guests I know. First, the host of the Critical Hour on Radio Sputnik, Dr. Wilmer Leon. There he is in his youthful, handsome face, and on the other side is from Pasta to Go on YouTube, not a cooking show, by the way, Craig Pasta Jardula, who's good enough to take us through some of these conversations as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this week once again. Let's start with this, geopolitics. Big story, really, big story. Finally, there has been an arrest warrant in the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. I'm sure you guys have been catching up on this story. Here's the headline. The report says that Ukraine was behind the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. It says Ukrainian military officers and had a drunken celebration May of 2022. They orchestrated the attack using a small sailboat. German chief prosecutor has ordered the arrest of a man who is now apparently hiding out in Ukraine, interestingly enough, though he was originally living in Poland when he allegedly masterminded this attack. Now, this is an absolutely fascinating story. It seems to me, reading through most of the dicta that has been issued thus far on this warrant that has been issued, there were 2, 3, maybe 4 Ukrainians who put this all together on a sailboat that's about 30, 40 feet long. The pipeline, remember, is about 300 feet underwater. I dive. I'm certified. That doesn't make me a good diver, but I know enough to know what happens down there. You're not just an average person who decides to go diving after having a couple of drinks to do something like this. They pulled off what is obviously one of the most incredible and destructive sabotages in the history of Europe. And they did this. And the reason I'm stating it this way, and maybe I'll start with you, Pasta, is the report seems to indicate that they can't determine at this point if the Ukrainian government or the U.S. government or any other state was involved. My BS antennas are going up. What about yours?
I think your BS antennas are working properly, Rick, because they also said that it was high-ranking military personnel of Ukraine, yet Volodymyr Zelensky didn't know, even though I believe the diver that they are accusing of doing this, his name was also Volodymyr, something with a Z as well. But I really think this is just about damage control at this point, Rick. I think so many people in Germany are suffering from high energy costs. I mean, remember, Nord Stream 2 was one of the biggest carriers of natural gas, right, into Europe from Russia, and now they're paying the price. So I think the German government has kind of concocted up this story of sorts to ease the mind of the people, to let them know they're doing something about their energy cost, because this was just a random occasion and they're going to make the person who did this pay a price. I mean, this is complete fabrication. I look at this as almost equal to the inflation's only at 3% reports, conveniently now closer to an election. That's why we're getting this story, and I don't buy it whatsoever. My BS antennas are also up and pinging pretty loudly.
Yeah, it is a different story than some of the original stories we heard, which was that Russia did this itself because Russia decided one day that they were going to blow up their most important and impressive, pipeline constructions they've ever done. By the way, one of the most significant parts of their economy, that they were going to just go up one day and blow it up because then they wanted to be able to say that somebody else did it, which seems weird in and of itself, Wilmer. But the fact that Germany would have somebody or have something happen that affects its populace, its citizens, It's going to make them perhaps not be able to heat their homes. And instead of looking to attack whatever government did it, they seem like they're defensive about it. That's weird. It's kind of like a battered wife syndrome, no? But governments.
Well, let's sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a faithful ship. I mean, they might as well have said Gilligan and the SS Minnow did this, because their story makes absolutely no sense. Germany's problem is Olaf Scholz was standing next to Joe Biden when Joe Biden said that the United States was not going to allow the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to be turned up. And it's also important to realize that there are, I think, three or four pipelines. One of them is still functional, and the United States will not allow Germany to turn up the functioning pipeline. You're talking about 300 feet of water. You're talking about those pipelines are encased in some ungodly amount of concrete. And you have to ask yourself, what countries have the capability to do this? The United States, Britain, possibly Russia, and possibly Germany. So your options here on who could actually pull something like this off, while the United States is, by the way, engaged in naval exercises right in the very space that all of this took place.
Oh, and ask yourself something. Wait, I got something to add to your equation. Your enthymime is, I think, spot on, but you're only missing one element, which I think kind of seals this deal. What happened after this happened to the U.S.'s ability, or how much energy the U.S. sends into Germany vis-a-vis how much of it comes from Russia? Russia was, at the time, before this happened, sending something like supplying Germany with like 50 to 60%, I don't have the exact number in my head, of its natural gas. Since then, Russia's down to about 15%, and the U.S. is up to about 50 or 60%.
And where does that gas come from? Most of it comes from Texas. Thank you, Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz had been championing this very mission. And all you have to do is read Cy Hirsch's work, and all of the questions get answered.
Yeah, we're trying to get to him, by the way. We're trying to see if we can get him on the show. If not today, we'll probably get him on sometime next week. All right, let's switch topics real quick. The U.S. sending out a naval strike group, complete with a fleet of battleships, carriers, submarines. It's been sent to the area now, the area obviously off the coast of Iran. President Biden has signed off on sending anywhere between $16 to $20 billion in taxpayers' money, yours and mine, by the way, to Israel. That's on top of the $4 billion we normally sent them, even though they're one of the richest countries in the world. Number three, we're telling Iran at the same time that they have no right to consider retaliation against Israel, and they should just live with the fact that Israel can shoot missiles into their country and assassinate politicians. Watch.
No one wants to see a wider regional conflict. So, hopefully we don't find ourselves in a situation of having to employ those capabilities. But if we need to in the defense of Israel, we will.
He makes it sound like Iran is just out of the blue saying, hey, we got nothing to do today, so I think we're going to just bomb Israel, No context. He's not talking about what happened before this. That's disappointing from somebody who represents my country. Pasta, start us off.
Well, I mean, I think Caitlin Johnstone made the best analogy when she came to talking about this. This is like the mother that's at the park with her child, and her child's running around hitting everybody. But as soon as somebody hits back, that's when the mother jumps up and goes, oh, my Lord, how could you do this? We need peace. You need to stop that. That's what we're seeing here, but it's the same old playbook, right? I mean, everything when it comes to Israel's mind started on October 7th. Nothing else happened before that. There was no Nakba. There was no bombing. There was no jailing of Palestinians before that. This is the same playbook they're using over and over again, and they're counting on Americans being asleep at the wheel. The only problem is we are asleep at the wheel. We need to wake up to these tactics and really call it out for what it is. It is disheartening when you hear these generals say these things, because at the end of the day, you can only expect Iran to be able to counter back and do so. So it's just mind-boggling to me, because it seems like they're setting the stage to enter into this war, and Israel's doing everything they can in their power, whether it be assassinating a Hamas leader in Tehran, bombing Beirut, bombing a school with 100 children in it the other day, right? We hear the story about the father who ran out to go get the birth certificates for the kids just to come back to see that, his family's been wiped out. They're doing everything within their power to drag us into the war. And all signs, when you hear a press conference like this, all signs are pointing that we're willing to do so.
Yeah, it does seem curious. Wilmer, to you.
Well, I don't know that we're being dragged into the war because I don't hear Joe Biden. I don't hear the Secretary of State giving any pushback to Israel. And it's also important, it's not only the major transgressions, such as the bombing in Iran and in Lebanon, but it's the microaggressions as well. Itamar Ben-Gvir bringing 100 Israeli Jews to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's all of these very, very seemingly small things that add up to very, very big things. All the United States has to do, if it is serious about not having a wider conflict, is put a stop to Israel. And you mentioned the carrier fleets going in. It costs between $4 and $6 million a day to run the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
That's one aircraft carrier, $4 to $6 million a day of our tax dollars being wasted in this foolishness.
That's crazy, and nobody seems to be saying anything about it in the United States. This is where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance would have an advantage if they just decided to stop talking about, I don't know, Martin Luther King and stuff. But we're going to get to that story, too. All right, here's another one. It would be absolutely crazy, right, for the United States to allow Ukraine to use F-16s to bomb Russians. And it would be even more crazy if they allowed Ukraine to bomb inside of Russia, to literally bomb Russia, the nation. Well, it might be crazy to us, certainly not crazy to Senator Lindsey Graham, who wants to hire retired pilots to do just that.
When I think about Kursk, bold, brilliant, beautiful. Keep it up. Putin started this, kick his ass. Bottom line is to the administration, I appreciate your support. Let these people fight. Give them weapons they need to win a war they can't afford to lose. When it comes to F-16s, way too long. They're here. Let's use them. Let's train Ukrainian pilots. When I talked to President Zelensky just a few minutes ago, if you're a retired F-16 pilot and you're looking to fight for freedom, they will hire you here. They're going to look throughout NATO nations for willing fighter pilots who are retired to come help them until they can get their pilots trained.
I don't even know what to say, Pasta. I mean, what do you make of a man? A man? A man? Yeah, I guess a man. Never been married, by the way. Never really served. I mean, yeah, he was a JAG or something. He was a lawyer. But he's willing to go out there and start World War III. He wants us to invade Russia. He wants us to invade Russia. I'm sorry. This is go, Pasta.
Mr. Lindsey Graham, how can we miss you if you don't go away? I wish this guy would just go away. I mean, a couple months ago, he let the cat out of the bag. And this particular story reminds me, or really goes in parallel with what we're doing with this $20 billion in aid to Israel as weapons. This is weapons for the future. They're not going to get these weapons for years to come. This F-16 program, this is about endless continuous war, about endless continuous agitation against a nuclear power like Russia. So when they talk about these things and they say these things, they're never going to end. We're going to have endless wars no matter what. He even said not too long ago that Ukraine has some of the most precious trillions of minerals under their grounds. They can be one of the best partners. We don't want them let them falling into the hands of China and Russia. And that's what this is all about. He's letting the cat out of the bag here. This is about endless war and endless expansion of the empire. And we need to push back against that in itself.
It's sick. It's sick. The things he just said are sick. If somebody in China or Russia or Iran or India or anywhere else in the world said, a third of what he just said, Fox News, all the cameras would break in one moment. There'd be an explosion over there, not to mention CNN and MSNBC. And yet it's like this man says this, and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Let's just invade Russia. Let's bomb the hell out of Russia. Let's use our... Wilmer, you...
Lindsey Graham says crazy things because Lindsey Graham is out of his mind. He is more than willing to have Ukraine fight until the last Ukrainian dies.
Yeah.
He's more than happy to do that. He's appealing to retired F-16 pilots. What he didn't say was, if you have a death wish, if you are suicidal, they will hire you here. Because these aren't the top line F-16s. These are antiquated F-16s. All these planes are targets. In fact, I'll be surprised how many of these actually wind up leaving the ground, because it will not surprise me if Russia winds up blowing these things up before they even leave the ground. And then there are just some very practical things about F-16s, the way their engines hang low, the pristine runways that they need.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of things that make this whole thing absolutely nonsensical. It's a dog and pony show with no dogs and ponies.
Well, unfortunately, we have given them the F-16s, or not us, but essentially us, because it came from other countries. They are using them in some capacity. We cannot independently confirm that they're using them in the Kursk region. And if they do, oh my gosh, I mean, how can Russia not retaliate if we're doing something?
Last long.
Yeah, this is really crazy. And here's what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break. Why isn't Donald Trump talking about this? Why isn't J.D. Vance talking about this? Why aren't they positioning an alternative to the crazy stuff that the government of Biden and Harris are doing? Instead, he's talking about what? Martin Luther King? Skin color? We'll be right back. Stay right there. All right, let's go now to the, welcome back, I'm Rick Sanchez. Let's go now to the U.S. presidential race. This is important. I'm going to tell you about what's going on with Donald Trump and then his counterpart, Kamala Harris. The Republican candidate, Donald Trump, appears to have, I don't know how else to say it, he appears to have lost his way. I mean, this guy, this man, this former president has a decent record that he could run on, especially on things like foreign policy, for example, with the exception, of course, of Israel. which would allow him to differentiate himself to many Americans, especially moderates, those people in the middle who are going to determine this race. But he's not doing that. I don't know why he's not doing that, but he's not doing that. Instead, he seems to be mired in what appears to be a bizarre need to validate himself and his crowd sizes and weird. So instead, he's talking about a lot of negative stuff, even comparing himself for some reason to Martin Luther King.
What I can tell you is this. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different.
Yeah.
Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more.
So, on the one hand, he gives a speech where an interview where he defends Biden and says this whole thing is about why it is that Biden had a coup against him. What does that have to do with why people should vote for you, I ask? And then he compares his crowd sizes to Martin Luther King's crowd sizes. I mean, you guys are experts in messaging because it's what you do for a living. So am I. The three of us basically message, right? We know how to put words together to create a message that will at least get people thinking. I don't think he's getting the right people to think the right things about him with his messaging. Am I wrong? Wilmer, we start with you.
First of all, well, no, you're not wrong. He's a megalomaniac. And it's also important to understand that he is still operating in a primary race mentality. Yeah. Where in the primaries, you consolidate your base. Then in the general election, you moderate or modulate your message to expand to a broader to the broader electorate.
Good point.
He's still stuck in, because that's all he has. That's all, and I think he also believes that people don't pay attention to foreign policy. So which is an age-old political adage. Mm-hmm. But I think that is shifting now with what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening in Gaza. Yeah. So he's following that mindset, sticking to the domestic message, a warped domestic racist message, because that's who he sees his base to be.
Yeah, what a shame. I mean, I think you're right in so many ways that he's not stretching his message. And it just hurts me to know what you and I and Pasta just talked about before the break, and that's an important conversation that somebody should have with the American people. J.D. Vance could probably do it, but he's not at the top of the ticket. Donald Trump should do it, but he's not, because he just doesn't, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know how to articulate it. I don't know. Let me throw this at you, Pasta, as we continue this political conversation. Let me tell you what the other side's doing. Kamala Harris, for her part, just continues to appear, if nothing else, extremely coachable. She's sticking to her script that's not written by her, but by others and by AI, who knows. She's not talking to reporters. She's also generally not talking about her policies or not issuing new policies. She's also running away from some of her policies, the liberal ones. Like, for example, she used to be completely for Medicare for all, not anymore.
Harris campaign official tells Fox that if the vice president is elected president, she will not push single payer or Medicare for all. Harris isn't making that case herself publicly yet, though it represents quite an evolution on health care. In 2017, Harris was the first Senate Democrat to co-sponsor Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all bill.
But here's the most important fact of all this. Before she got into the race, Donald Trump was killing it. He was going to be the next president of the United States, winning everywhere by a lot. That's not true anymore. As a matter of fact, you could make the case, if you look at enough polls, that he's losing right now. At best tied. Pasta to you.
Yeah, I don't even think you have to look at polls. You can just get a sense of what's going on. A couple months ago, it was a foregone conclusion that this was his presidency to lose, and he's finding a way to lose it. But I think he's finding a way to lose it is because he's being exposed, right? You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have any new original ideas. That Elon Musk interview was so vanilla and so boring and just so telling that there's no new ideas coming from the Donald Trump camp. I mean, he is going after the lowest hanging fruit out there. I think Dr. Wilmer put it beautifully when he said he's still in primary mode. That's when you get your base, you consolidate, but then you open on up. He's yet to open on up because his ideas are still in the past. I mean, what is he going to do economically?
But why wouldn't they do? I don't mean to interrupt, but because we're running out of time. Why wouldn't the people handling him not do what the people handling Kamala are doing, or Vice President Harris, pardon me, and just say, here's a script, read it. We've AI checked this. These are the points you need to hit to get the folks in Miami, the folks in Florida, the black people, the white people, the this people, the that people, whatever. Read the script and don't go outside of it. But why can't they do that with him?
That is the quagmire, because it used to be said that the best thing that Donald Trump will do, being the great negotiator and the businessman he is, he'll put the right people in the right places, meaning the people around him. He'll surround himself with the right people. Unfortunately, he's doing what a lot of teams do in the NFL when they lose. They play the prevent defense, and then they get scored upon. And that's exactly what's happening here. He's keeping his message small, refined, and like we said, the lowest hanging fruit out there. He's not opening up to anybody out there right now, and it's just really a shame. He has no economic plan. His foreign policy plan is to be more of a bully than Biden and Kamala Harris is, to keep the other leaders in line. He's just being exposed for who he is. He's not the guy who campaigned in 2016 when we thought there was a chance he was going to get us out of NATO. Now he reassures us that he's going to stay in NATO.
It is weird, Wilmer, because this is not the same guy who had that fresh appeal. I know he was crazy then, and he's crazy still, but he had something then that he's not showing now. 45 seconds. What the hell is it? What happened?
He doesn't listen to his advisors because he's Donald Trump. It's when you get people with that mindset that think they know everything because they've been somewhat successful, it's very hard to get them to listen to other people that they don't deem to be as smart as them. And going back to Kamala really quickly on the Medicare for All, there was another Democratic candidate that campaigned on the same theme. His name was Barack Obama. And as soon as he got into the White House, he abandoned Medicare for All single payer because the insurance companies got a hold of his behind and said, we will sink you like the Lusitania if you do this too.
Yeah,
they've gotten a hold of her just before she got into the White House.
And that goes to that she's fake. That what they're putting out is not really her. It's a good argument, but they need to affect it with proper messaging, and they just haven't been able to do that yet, which is what this conversation is about, guys. This is a good conversation. It's passionate, it's real, and you guys are both really smart. Thanks for sharing some of that with me. I really appreciate it. God bless. Thanks. We'll see you next time. That's our show. Remember to always look outside your own box. Truths don't live in boxes, as we like to say. Look for us here. And by the way, every day more and more of you all over the world are watching our show, and that's really nice. It makes me feel good. It makes us all feel good. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Dass der Verdächtige ein ukrainischer Staatsbürger ist, ist das eine. Ich würde daraus noch keine Rückschlüsse ziehen. Noch keine Rückschlüsse ziehen. Rückschlüsse ziehen. Rückschlüsse ziehen. Dass der Verdächtige ein ukrainischer Staatsbürger ist, ist das eine. Ich würde daraus noch keine Rückschlüsse ziehen, was die Beteiligung von Staaten angeht. Das muss sicher ermittelt werden, aber immerhin gibt es erste Fahndungserfolge, jetzt Ermittlungserfolge.
Championed by two friends, Russia's Vladimir Putin and former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder.
We need this gas, and it's the most economical way to get it. And everyone who deals with energy policy knows that.
This cheap gas flowed directly from Vyborg, Russia, to Lubmin in Germany, a distance of over 1,200 kilometers. The pipeline right through the Baltic was a kick in the teeth for Eastern European countries who'd long earned good money from the pipelines running through their territories.
Ukraine was skeptical right from the start, as it foresaw exactly what in fact would happen, namely this bypassing of Ukraine and other countries like Poland, which also saw the risks, and because they themselves had pipeline systems which supplied gas to Western Europe.
Nord Stream 2 would simply give Russia an opportunity to put more of a stranglehold on Ukraine and Ukraine's economy during this time of tension. And so we were very much against it for geopolitical purposes.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
Dass der Verdächtige nur keine Rückschlüsse ziehen. Dass der Verdächtige ein ukrainischer Staatsbürger ist. Erste Fahndungserfolge, jetzt Ermittlungserfolge.
Championed by two friends, Russia's Vladimir Putin and former
Ukraine and other systems which supplied gas to Western Europe. And systems which supplied gas to Western Europe.
Hi, Jose. I got a mic up. Buenos tardes. I'm glad it's Thursday. I got a busy day right after the show. It's back to school season. Do you have kids? Oh. Just one? A boy or a girl? I have only one, a boy. He's starting kindergarten. He's my one little guy. It goes fast, huh? I know. We got to go to his school open house after the show and meet his teachers and show him the school and all of that. So, ay. Senior year, yeah. I said, yeah, that's sweet. It's first day of the last year. Oh. Oh. Rock and roll.
All right, how we doing? You, George Samueli. Samueli. Sure. Sure. So you can, hey, Manila.
Hey.
So what I did was I wrote the script in 3 parts, essentially. First, you and I can have a little conversation about what the warrants that were issued kind of say, and a little bit of the ridiculousness of that, how these guys pulled all this shit off on some sailboat in the middle of the ocean, and you know, 300 feet deep down diving after apparently being, you know, planning this out in some drunk escapade. The whole, anyway, whatever, that stuff. Then we go to the significance of the actual pipeline, why it matters, what was going on, perspective-wise, context-wise, in the minds of all of Europeans and United States at the time, to kind of put that into perspective. And then the third part is the potential assignment of culpability to the United States and why. And that's where I'm going to play those 2 sound bites of the U.S. ambassador to Germany saying, "Oh yeah, this is horrible. This is bad for us. Shit, we don't want them fucking sending all this oil to them, this gas to Germany. Oh, that's going to help Russia. We don't want Russia to do well." And then Biden saying, "Yeah, I decided to end it," which is fascinating, by the way. And then I looked at the numbers and plucked some numbers on what has happened since. How much gas used to go from Russia that doesn't anymore, and how much gas comes from the U.S. that didn't but now does. It's almost like a flip. I mean, from my read, it's almost like a flip. I mean, like the United States and Russia have now just kind of changed positions when it comes to giving gas to Europe.
Like very obvious cause and effect.
Yeah, Russia used to send almost 50% of the gas that went into Europe came from Russia. Now Russia sends maybe 13, 14, 15, depending on what you look at. And the U.S. sends 50% of the gas that Russia gets. So it's amazing. Hey, George, you there? Hey, George.
One more headroom. Okay.
What's up, dude? How are you? I was just talking to Manila about about contextualizing this story for people a little bit, because I've always thought, and especially as a guy who grew up in the United States, when I first started working and doing these stories, and people would say Nord Stream, I was like, what is that? What the hell is a Nord Stream? And you have to kind of give context to this story, just like this thing in Gaza. You can't just start with October 7th. How did we get here? So Manila and I are gonna try and do that in our explanation before we get to you, not just the summons or the warrant for the arrest of this guy, but then also the explanation of what it is, what is the Nord Stream, why is it significant, how it started, and then we're gonna go through the Biden comment and U.S. culpability, potential U.S. culpability, which everyone seems to be denying, before we come to you. Cool?
Yep.
Are you there, George? Good.
I am, though. For some reason, your audio, I can only barely hear you.
Well, by golly, we got to fix that shit. Let me see if Victor can hear me. Okay, they're looking into it now and trying to fix it. Do you need me to keep talking? Tell me if you do. Victor, do you need me to keep talking?
You sound very good, but maybe he sounds a little bit better, but I don't know. But he was raising his voice, so I don't know.
Fourscore. Let's do Shakespeare.
Okay, that sounds better. Yeah, that sounds
that
better.
sounds better? Okay.
Yeah.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come here to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do in their lives lives after them. The good is often buried
That sounds good.
with their bones. Good. Let's do it. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you that Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, 'twas a grievous fault.
How do you remember that?
That's what it's like to be a lesbian. I mean, a thespian.
I was a high school thespian too, but I don't remember jack about like Shakespeare. I can't remember that stuff.
That's because you were always on drugs or drunk. I've heard. I talked to your friends.
Smoking cigarettes under the bleachers.
Oh, bring back the 80s or the 70s or the 60s or whatever. Whatever the hell. What was it for you, George? When were you a badass?
The 80s went bad.
Huh?
Yeah, the 80s were pretty good. Everything started to go down once the 80s finished.
Yeah, right.
All downhill since then.
Everybody just got too serious, you know? I mean, God. That's funny. That's funny. All right, Victor, are we good to go?
Me? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Let's just try to split this baby in half, guys. Louis, let's do half and half, whatever it is, 13 and 13 or whatever. Or, All right, let's do it. Hey, everybody, I'm Rick Sanchez. This is Direct Impact, and this is what we're going to be talking about today.
Dass der Verdächtige ein ukrainischer Staatsbürger ist das eine. Ich würde daraus noch keine Rückschlüsse ziehen.
I don't know if you can tell. Obviously, you can't. Unless you speak German, you don't know exactly what he's saying. But look, here's what's going on. Europe is all abuzz because arrest warrants have finally been issued against Ukrainians accused of blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. Where does this investigation lead? Part of what you just heard in that interview will explain it. I'm going to take you through it. I'm Rick Sanchez. Hey, let's do this. All right, so that's the big story. It is a buzz. I mean, it is a buzz. It should be a buzz, right? Germany has officially issued arrest warrants for the people it believes that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And it does point directly at Ukraine, according to investigators.
Dass der Verdächtige ein ukrainischer Staatsbürger ist das eine. Ich würde daraus noch keine Rückschlüsse ziehen, was die Beteiligung von Staaten angeht. Das muss sicher ermittelt werden, aber immerhin gibt es erste Fahndungserfolge, jetzt Ermittlungserfolge.
I don't know if you can tell, if you can read along, but let me help you. That's the reaction of one German member of parliament saying, yeah, it was definitely Ukrainians, a bunch of Ukrainians. But then he goes on to say that we should not read into that Ukraine was responsible. Huh? Explain to me, please, because that's difficult to understand. All right, so let me catch you up by just giving you the rest of the investigation, what seems to be reported at this point. The German chief prosecutor has ordered the arrest of a man who is now apparently hiding in Ukraine. Though he was originally living in Poland when he allegedly masterminded this attack, along with a couple of other Ukrainian military officials who put the whole thing together after a night of heavy drinking. Stay with me here. Then they managed to pull off one of the most incredible and destructive acts of sabotage in European history by blowing up one of the most important infrastructure parts of the Russian economy, the gas pipelines that help fuel the homes of most German citizens and other Europeans. Those gas pipelines sit about, 300 feet deep underwater, okay? Not easy to get to. These suspects did all that supposedly by themselves using a relatively small sailboat that you're looking at right there in the middle of the Baltic Sea. The sailboat is called the Andromeda. It's about 15 meters long, which apparently had explosive residues on it, which matched the explosives used in the blast. All right, so let's just stop there. There's a lot more to tell, and there's a lot to catch you up, but that's kind of where we are. Manila, let me bring you in at this point for reaction, given that that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, and underscore that part, Rick. The story. That's the story that we're getting right now. And remember, we didn't hear the story until many, many, many months after this. Basically, it was a seismic event, at least according to Danish authorities, because they had seismic monitoring equipment that was on Bornholm Island that had said it registered the equivalent of 500 kgs worth of TNT, this explosive event. And let me remind you, Rick, when this went down in the fall of 2022, I'm going to bring you back to my part of the world where I'm from, in Hollywood. In early 2023, the writer's strike happened, right? So when the news story hit about what happened to Nord Stream, it's this ridiculous story that makes no sense, that's full of holes. We don't know who the villains are, who the whatever are. And I would say it's because Washington couldn't get their hands on decent writers at the time because it was a writer's strike.
So they left it up to people like Seymour Hersh. All right, so let's continue. You're right. The story so far doesn't make sense, but for the first time, they're saying it was Ukraine, but at the same time, they're saying it was not Ukraine. So too often in this business.
Rinky-dink.
Go ahead.
Rinky-dink sailboat. You just showed the Andromeda. It's a rinky-dink little sailboat, and the seismologists on Bornholm say this is 500 kilos worth of explosives. So we're not talking about a Mickey Mouse little, sabotage event. 500 kilos is a heavy thing.
Yeah, no, they're not.
You don't get a couple of drunk guys to swim under and carry 500 kilos worth of explosives.
They're not robbing a convenience store, and that almost seems like what they're saying. So let's continue. Too often in this business, and this is why we want to do this, we tell stories like these without proper context. And many of you are watching us from all over the world right now, and you probably don't know the background. I don't blame you. You got a life to live, right? You don't understand the history, the significance of the Nord Stream pipeline. Without that, it's kind of hard to understand why this whole thing happened, who may have done it, and why they possibly could have done it. So here's some background. This is a DW documentary we found that kind of lays out the facts quite clearly. Here it is.
Championed by two friends, Russia's Vladimir Putin and former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder.
We need this gas, and it's the most economical way to get it. And everyone who deals with energy policy knows that.
This cheap gas flowed directly from Vyborg, Russia, to Lubmin in Germany, a distance of over 1,200 kilometers. The pipeline right through the Baltic was a kick in the teeth for Eastern European countries who'd long earned good money from the pipelines running through their territories.
Ukraine was skeptical right from the start, as it foresaw exactly what, in fact, would happen, namely this bypassing of Ukraine and other countries like Poland, which also saw the risks, and because they themselves had pipeline systems which supplied gas to Western Europe.
Sounds to me, if you listen to that, like Russia and Germany were simply taking out the middlemen to be able to provide the gas from this point to this point directly, right? More efficiently and cheaper from Russia to the people of Germany. They were essentially cutting out the middlemen. Manila, that's important here, right?
Well, you know, Rick, you can earn a pretty penny being the middleman. And in this case, for Ukraine, this provides the motive. Because now when you cut out the middleman, which is Ukraine, you're cutting out about $1.5 billion worth of transit fees that Russia otherwise used to have to pay by going over land to go into Western Europe to transport this natural gas.
Interesting.
So we're talking big money here, $1.5 billion per year on average, sometimes more, sometimes less, but that is a lot of money for a country like Ukraine, who never really reassembled their economic viability after the fall of the Soviet Union. They've kind of been stuck in the 90s. So that was really kind of their major source of income for the state was transit fees that they were charging Russia in order to traverse across their land.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. And they're not the only ones here. So Poland's angry, Ukraine is angry. Hey, you're cutting us out. We want some of that money. Meanwhile, the people of Europe are going, hey, that's great. It's cheaper for us to be able to heat our homes. But there's something else here. This is where Seymour Hersh comes in and others who have reported this kind of thing. And that is, it's impossible to look at this story without taking into account which country was against the Nord Stream pipeline from the start and which country had the most to gain from its destruction. And that country is us, the United States. Don't take my word for it. What do I know? Listen to what the U.S. ambassador to Germany said about it. And then listen to President Biden say, before Nord Stream was blown up, that he was going to do that. His own words. End it. That's what he said. I'm going to end it. Listen.
Nord Stream 2 would simply give Russia an opportunity to put more of a stranglehold on Ukraine and Ukraine's economy during this time of tension. And so we were very much against it for geopolitical purposes.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
We will bring an end to it. Before all that happened, I'm going to give you some numbers now. Ready? Before all that happened, 2021, 47% of Europe's imported natural gas came from Russia, delivered inexpensively and directly through those pipelines, about 4 pipelines. In fact, some European countries relied so much on Russia that they had almost 80% of their natural gas coming in from Russia. Now, only about 15% of Europe's gas comes from Russia. Some say 13, some say 14, some say 15, whatever. Somewhere in that number. It's not around 50% like it used to be. So you ask yourself, okay, so where's that natural gas coming into Europe from now? If you guessed the United States, you would be right. How much? More than 50% of the natural gas now being used and received in Europe comes from the United States. Oh, and Manila. We should mention that U.S. gas that they're now getting in Europe is about twice as expensive as it used to be when they got it from Russia. Ain't making it up. Those are the numbers.
Well, you know. Well, Rick, when you're such good friends like Russia and Germany are, excuse me, the United States and Germany now, when you're such good friends, you don't mind paying a little bit more, Rick. It's quality made in the USA. But then, unfortunately, because you're a government, you have to deal with the fallout from your citizens, and then when you also export third party, the cheap gas you used to get from Russia into the rest of the European Union, and at the time the UK was part of that, and they were also reaping the benefits of this cheap Russian natural gas. Everybody in Europe's gas prices, obviously their energy prices have shot through the roof over the past 2 years, and that's why we're seeing so many demonstrations across all of the EU and the UK. I mean, besides some civil strife, people are still very upset and angry about the conditions that have been caused for them because these pipelines are now gone. And let's not forget, Rick, these pipelines are not just easy to explode by some drunk dudes on a play yacht, right? These are giant, fortified, heavy, thick steel, giant pipes, right, that are fortified over and over and over, covered in rubberized material, plastics. This isn't like a pipe in your house bringing, the gas to your stove. We're talking a major industrial pipeline. It's not easy to just blow up. Now, as far as the Germans go, a guy called August Hanning, he's the former head of the Germans' version of the CIA, the German Foreign Intelligence Agency. He is now quoted talking to the press, German press that is, that he says he has reason to believe that Poland, alongside Ukraine, was also involved in this sabotage. And then, again, let's also not leave this part out. Russia was not allowed to partake in the investigation over the past nearly 2 years
even though they're the victims.
Because it's Denmark's territory.
Even though they're the victims.
It's their pipeline. It's their pipeline, along with Germany. Somewhere between 11 and $13 billion spent on this. It's your project. You're not allowed to investigate what happened to your product, to your thing, to your infrastructure. I mean, there's, again, so many holes in this, Rick. It's unbelievable how they can't kind of piece this all together and fill in the gaps.
It's like the old saying, just walk along. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Just walk along. We'll take care of this for you. Don't worry. We'll tell you what we find out. We'll let you know. Well, that's why we're looking into this, and that's why context matters, and that's why this information is important. And we're going to be talking in a
One more thing.
You go ahead.
One more quick thing. One thing that nobody bothers to also point out, the destruction and the fallout from this gas explosion, is we forget that this is basically eco-terrorism. Besides infrastructure terrorism to Germany, that is a NATO ally to the United States, the explosion, took place in Danish territory. It has been estimated that more than 115,000 tons of natural gas escaped and damaged the wildlife and the ocean floor.
Yeah, nobody's talking about it.
It took over a month.
You're right.
No, it's eco-terrorism as well. So the animals here are also dying. So no one's talking about that.
We're gonna go to a quick break. Thanks, Manila. You're the best and a half. And when we come back, we're going to stay on this Nord Stream pipeline thing, and we're going to be joined by George Samueli. Now, he's a senior research fellow at Global Policy Institute who monitors the numbers that we were just talking about and can take us through this a little more, because this is a drill down we should be doing. This is important. Nobody in the U.S. who watches regular newscasts will probably know about it, but the rest of the world is paying attention. We'll be right back. Hey, I'm Rick Sanchez. Welcome back to Direct Impact. I'm joined now by George Samueli, Senior Research Fellow at the Global Policy Institute. You know, George, this is one of those stories where, as we like to say, if it quacks like a duck, it's usually a duck. The United States had most to gain from the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. The United States has since then gained the most from the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. And yet there are people out there saying, oh no, Russia just destroyed its own pipelines. And please don't look at the U.S. and don't look at Ukraine as possibly being responsible for this. Am I crazy or just living in an upside down world?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's very, very funny that this big Wall Street Journal story that appeared the other day makes a number of very interesting disclosures, and one has to assume that the Wall Street Journal is being briefed by U.S. intelligence. Yeah. So, according to the journal, this drunken idea, hey guys, let's blow up Nord Stream, you know, great, let's go do it now. So this was hatched in May, and then already in June. This is June 2022. Dutch intelligence gets wind of it. Don't know how the Dutch get in there, but Dutch seem to have they're right in front. They pass this information not to the Germans. They pass this information to the CIA, and the CIA passes it on to the Germans. So June 2022, Germany is already fully cognizant of what Ukraine is doing. But there's another twist to it. According to the CIA, it was Zelensky himself who gave the order to go ahead and do this. And he told Zaluzhny, the top military man, so go organize it, get it done. And then the Americans apparently said, no, don't do it. Don't, you know, this is dangerous. This is escalatory. The last thing we want to do is escalate tensions. And so Zelensky apparently then went to Zaluzhny and say, no, we got to call it off. And Zaluzhny told him, well, you know where you can stuff that, and still went ahead with it. So Germany knew about this 3 months before the destruction of the pipeline. The Americans knew about this 3 months before. The Dutch knew about this 3 months before. And yet when it happens, they allow this nonsensical accusation to be made that, oh, Russia did it to itself. You know, for some reason, Russia wanted to destroy its own property. Oh, well, this is really bad. You know, what's remarkable about this is that if this is what they're saying that Zelensky hatched this plan, instructed Zaluzhny to do it, and then Zaluzhny just said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and do it, then you're basically signing off on sending arms, billions and billions upon dollars, the worst, most deadly weapons imaginable, to people who are destroying your own infrastructure. You know, I mean, as
that's a great point. That's a great point. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
That is an absolute.
That's what you're doing. Yeah, these are the people you're financing. They're there to destroy your own infrastructure, your own energy industry. They're making you economically, financially dependent upon the United States. They're wiping out your industry. And these are your allies. These are the people you want to go on financing. This is the people Baerbock.
That's a great point. Help us understand that. This is the one quagmire in all of this that I've never understood. Maybe I just don't understand the German ideology. Maybe I don't get it. But why would Germany not be on a full-out assault to get to the bottom of this, to find out who did this horrible thing that is going to make their citizens have to pay more, possibly not be able to heat their homes through the winter, and all of these things, not to mention sabotaging their own infrastructure, because it was really shared infrastructure, if you think about it. I mean, if it's a gas pipeline that takes gas from Russia to Germany, it's half German and half Russian, even though it's Russian, but it's part of their infrastructure. Why would they be so nonchalant about it? That's the part of the story I don't understand. Can you help us understand?
It's very hard to understand other than to think of Europe as now occupied territory. I mean, Europe has no independence, no sovereignty of its own. It's a colonial outpost of the United States. So Germany cannot begin an investigation because it knows perfectly well that the investigation is going to point to the real culprit, and that's the boss, the one who owns everything. So you're not going to investigate and point the finger at the boss.
But how did they get? But here, stop. No, how did they get so? I just showed some video a minute ago that was really cool. You see Gerhard Schroeder and Vladimir Putin shaking hands, saying, "Hey, let's do this. It makes sense. It'll be good for you, your people. It'll be good for me, my people. Hey, hooray! Signed deal. Let's do it." How did they go from that, where two countries could just have an understanding? You don't have to like the other country, but if you've got a business deal, you got a business deal, right? How did they go from that to what you were just talking about, where they just, no, we don't want gas. We're willing to suffer to make sure that we don't get anything good for our people from Russia?
Well, think, the Gerhard Schroeder. Gerhard Schroeder in 2002 came out against the American plan to invade Iraq. Very open, very upfront. He said, we're not taking part in any adventures. Moreover, we're not even going to allow our country to be used to send forces. We're not going to help the Americans to use our country to transport men, armor, transportation to Iraq. It was a very hard line that he took. Yeah. And what did Schroeder? Schroeder lost the next election. So in other words, the Germans chose to be a supplicant, to be a totally dependent entity. They had a chancellor who was actually saying, yeah, we're not going to take any part. We're not going to allow America to use our territory for this nonsensical adventure. And he was rejected by the German voters. And they got this creature, Angela Merkel, who had to endure humiliation after humiliation. And she didn't mind. She found out that her own telephone was tapped. The Americans were listening in to all her personal phone calls, and she didn't have a problem with that. And the Germans didn't have a problem. Barack Obama went to Germany. He was treated like a hero. Whoa, he's a great man. This is a person. He was listening in to the chancellor's phone conversations, and the Germans had no problem with it. And now Schroeder is a marginalized figure in Germany. He's constantly trying to defend himself. They're inflicting humiliation after humiliation.
But he was right. But he was right about everything he did.
He was right. Absolutely.
He was 100% right. Everybody else was wrong.
Right on this.
Yeah. So what happens now? I mean, we've got this investigation. Looks like at least it's an investigation. There's some guy who did this who's hiding out in Ukraine. Shouldn't the rest of the world say to Ukraine and its government, hey, give this guy up. He's a terrorist. Who's saying that? And why not?
Well, of course, again, nobody really wants to go and investigate this too far, because if, of course, Ukraine were to give him up, he's going to start pointing fingers. He's not going to take the rap. So he's going to say, I did it. And you know who told me to do it? I've got the phone conversation with Zaluzhny, or Zelensky. So nobody's going to want to press ahead with this. Ukraine doesn't have an extradition treaty with Germany. I don't think Ukraine has an extradition treaty with anybody. So Ukraine's not going to give him up. He was in Poland. The Poles allowed him to escape. So they got wind of, Germany is going to make an extradition request. So they said, bye-bye, you can go now. Sorry, he's gone. He's out of our hands. So no one's going to go ahead with this. And there was an article I read today about Zaluzhny. It said, well, Zaluzhny is now the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK. So he enjoys diplomatic immunity. So you can't do anything about him. Oh, I see. So you can have arrest warrants issued to Russian president, arrest warrants against Libyan presidents and whoever. But apparently a Ukrainian ambassador has immunity.
You can't.
Sorry, there's nothing we can do.
You cannot make this stuff up. You couldn't. A guy in Hollywood, as my colleague Manila would say, couldn't come up with a story as ridiculous as this. And yet they do, and nobody's looking, so they can get away with it. George, you're a delight to talk to. Thank you, my friend. Enjoyed the conversation.
I enjoyed it very much. Bye, Rick.
That's our show. Can you believe this stuff? Ugh. Look, I always say try and look outside your own box when you're looking for truths. Truths don't live in boxes. Boy, is this ever a great example of that, huh? I'm Rick Sanchez. We'll be looking for you en la próxima, next time.
Check.
Bajo, papi. ¿Por qué? ¿Se dio vuelta? Y no tiene uñitas.
Me hará ir a buscar la otra.
Ah, mira, yo tengo algo, mira, ven. A ver.
La llave.
Mierda, no, que se me cayó. Mira esto, ¿eh? Toma. Con cuidado que está durito, o sea, que...
Gracias.
Ay, Rubén, ven. Señor, no vaya.
Vamos a poner el micrófono.
Pon este micrófono para que lo que estás hablando, mierda, y con esto. Esto yo voy regulando. Toma, póntelo por ahí.
Yo, Rob, I'm mic'd up, so watch out what you say. I'm mic'd up, so watch out what you say. I'm mic'd up, so watch out what you say. Especially you, Victor. Hey. You're gonna record with me, right?
Stay where you are.
What was that for? Victor? Ah. Bueno, saber una historia de un chamo que andaba por ahí. Le gustaba mucho el juego, drogas, alcohol. Pero el chamo se recuperó. ¿Me lo quito? I look good in white. I do look good in white. Holy fuck. I like it that way. ¿Qué pasó, chamo? Oh, no, because I'm looking at that. So I'm trying to follow that. Así. Victor, watch out. Don't drop.
Oh, I forgot. Also, Ruben.
¿Qué pasó? The lights. Victor, you know it's a joke, right? I love you. follow you. Testing, testing. Am I good, Rob? ¿Andes? No, vámonos aquí.
it shouldn't. Oh, there's, hey!
got something growing out of your ear. On her policies? No one knows where they are. Hey, how are you? Good. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh really? That's interesting. Yeah, she's. Did you see it's been going on the internet, but the images of CBS News when Trump said he was going to do it and it was all negative, and then when she said she was going to do it, it was all glowing positive. Yeah.
Say it would destroy everything.
Yes, he was going to cost the nation like $250 billion. Yeah. Nothing for Trump. So I actually am fascinated by what's happening right now, because you literally have someone who was selected. She got 2% of the vote in 2020. You become a vice president without being elected. There's no votes cast for you. So you get selected as a VP. And then she gets selected this time, doesn't have to run in the primary. Like, everyone lines up behind her. She hasn't said one single policy position. She's saying she's only going to do one debate. It's like, it's incredible. It's like you literally, we're watching like if she gets elected, do Democrats ever hold a primary again? Why even have one? Yeah. You literally just. Oh, you can do Kamala from him. Sure. Yep. I didn't change that one. It's fine. Maybe. Or he might have had one. What's up? How you doing, buddy? Yep. Are you going to show me any of the stuff that you guys shot today? Are you able to do that?
I got a lot of stuff. In fact, I was asking Fern, I don't know how much to bother you with it, because it's a lot, but I want to see the different options or just show you these. I got everything there. So, yeah.
So if you have it, so I've hooked up in my office an HDMI, so you can plug it in there. We can just watch it on the screen too.
Okay.
Good. My left? We're just waiting for prompter. Hello, Vic. Were they able to get their stuff out of there? Okay.
Has the receipt in hand.
So does the auction house check every item? Oh. Well, that's great if we don't have to do that. Yeah. It keeps you from grabbing an extra box or something. Rats, we could have grabbed an extra box. Yeah, it's these. Good. It's going to be cool. You guys hit up Marshall's?
I got to play with my backpack. That was it.
Right there next to RT, there's a Marshall's and a Macy's. There's a Macy's right there too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we saw. We were there after we dropped off the stuff. We saw the Macy's. Sorry.
Cameras rolling.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2. Kamala Harris's campaign has been caught red-handed, spreading disinformation online. Axios reports that the campaign is promoting fake news articles, encouraging unsuspecting Google users to vote for her. Using real links from major publishers like AP, CNN, and CBS News, the campaign has designed new headlines like this. VP Harris's economic vision lowers costs and higher wages. Inflation is down. And Harris will lower health costs. The headlines you see... let's go back for a second. So actually, Maria, this thing's tilted a little bit, so you have to stay a little bit lower because I can't see the top line. Yeah, right there. 3, 2. VP Harris's economic vision lowers costs and higher wages. Inflation is down, and Harris will lower health costs. Below the headlines, you see brief passages just like in real news articles. But the campaign is spreading literal fake news by using Google Ads. If readers had a sharp eye, they may be able to catch the smaller words above that say sponsored and paid for by Harris for president. Google says that Harris is not violating their rules, but some publishers are pushing back. According to Axios, spokespeople for CNN, NPR, and USA Today, whose links appear in the ads, say they did not know their brands were being used in this way. And a spokesperson for The Guardian says, quote, while we understand why an organization might wish to align itself with The Guardian's trusted brand, we need to ensure that it's being used appropriately and with our permission, end quote. A quick Google search of Kamala Harris by a member of our team did not turn up any of these fake news articles. That might mean that Harris has now pulled them because she's been caught. And 3, 2, but how much damage has already been done, as those fake news articles were online for at least 10 days, according to Axios. Regardless, Harris has been caught engaging in blatant disinformation, which happens to be the very same thing that Trump is always accused of. And by the way, a spokesperson for Google said that the Trump campaign is not doing the same thing, not sponsoring ads that alter headlines from real news sites. Let's do that last part again. Go back. Right there. By the way. Scroll back down. Nope. Other way. Nope. Other way. Right there. 3, 2. By the way, a spokesperson for Google says that the Trump campaign is not doing the same thing. They are not sponsoring ads that alter headlines from real news sites. Yep. Do the playback on it just to watch it, because we had the same thing happen again with the thing we shot the other day. There's like a section that was just missing. It might be. Put like a sticker on it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep it on the jacket. It'll probably be the same jacket. There's my guy. Huh? I know. I was going to say that's actually what this is about. He's basically the West is pretty much done with him now. They're going to let him die off. Do we have the stay? Got those metal stays in it.
It looks different, like the light.
To my left? Right there? Yeah. Do you think I should pull like a Jake Paul and like challenge Zelensky to like a boxing? We could be on the undercard for Tyson and Jake Paul.
You should, but be careful. He might do a little dance.
I know. That's true. That's true. If he gets you down, he gets on you from behind. Having to fight him like this. Gets around behind you.
Playing a piano with his penis.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Trips you. Boom. Sure, mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is Ukraine's latest push into Russian territory actually a sign of Zelensky's demise and the end of the war in Ukraine? Okay. All right, in 3, 2. Is Ukraine's latest push into Russian territory actually a sign of Zelensky's demise and the end of the war in Ukraine? On August 6, Ukraine launched a surprise invasion of Kursk, Russian territory that borders Ukraine. The media and some of our politicians celebrated that move as bold and now cheering the invasion as a major victory that may reverse the course of what seemed like a certain Ukrainian defeat. But experts are warning that this move makes no military sense. Ukraine's invasion force will eventually get pummeled by Russian forces, leaving Ukraine with even fewer soldiers to defend their few remaining positions in the Donbass. Russia controls most of the Donbass region. Let's do it again. 3, 2. Russian control of the Donbass pretty much equals a Russian victory. Then there's the story that Germany has finally found out who blew up their Nord Stream pipelines in 2022. That major project sent cheap Russian gas to Germany and much of Western Europe. Germany has issued an arrest warrant for Ukrainian Let's do it again. Right there. 3, 2. Germany issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian diving instructor, and the media is running with Germany's claim that the operation was done by Ukrainians and only Ukrainians, a notion that was debunked a few months ago after the explosion, when Seymour Hersh revealed the details of a covert CIA and Biden White House plot to blow up the pipelines. Now, related to these reports are reports that the West is actually moving on from Zelensky. They're done with him, as his approval rating has plummeted amidst widespread corruption and this failing war effort. Ukrainians now want a 3, 2. Ukrainians now want to strike a peace deal with Russia, and they don't want to fight anymore. And the reality on the ground is that Ukraine is doomed to lose their fight with Russia. They're finally, do it again. 3, 2. And the reality on the ground that Ukraine is doomed to lose their fight with Russia is finally sinking in with the establishment of the Democratic Party. Reports indicate that even if Harris wins the White House, deep state diehards seem ready to let Ukraine lose. So even though the media is saying this new Ukrainian incursion is turning the tide, it's not. But the story does get clicks, and it offers some last-ditch hopes for anti-Russia fanatics in the West. And Germany, throwing Ukrainians to the wolves, likely with U.S. consent, could be the final nail in Zelensky's coffin, as well as the beginning of the end of Biden's proxy war in Ukraine. Okay? Yep. You say what?
Please?
Oh, no. You're so demanding. What's that? What was it? Oh, now you have to tell me. How did you say that? Oh. I didn't see it.
Like, I thought you would like said some kind of Snyder, so that was like, that's why I was laughing.
Oh, no, I probably didn't notice it because I was listening to this idiot guy on the phone. That's why I didn't notice it. I couldn't figure out why you were laughing.